Hello, how are you? After the adventures of Tom Sawyer, today we shall discuss its sequel, which is Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. I wanted to do both these novels together. It is going to be quite interesting. Well, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, without doubt, is written by Mark Twain, the American author, who lived from 1835 to 1910. Now, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn has two publication dates. In 1884, it was published in UK and Canada, while in 1885, it was published in USA. The genre, just like Tom Sawyer, is Bildungsroman and picaresque because here we talk about the growth of Huck or Huckleberry. And in that, we spoke about the growth of Tom Sawyer. Easy. Setting is also the same for both the novels. St. Petersburg, Missouri, along the Mississippi River. Here you will find the travel. Okay, this is like a travel novel. There's a journey going on of Huck along the Mississippi River. Now, something new added here, which was not in Tom Sawyer, that is an illustrator. This illustrator, called as E.W. Campbell, he literally drew for this novel. He made sketches. And when you will see the original edition, you will love it for these sketches, for these vivid imagery. Okay. Year of action is 1830s and 1840s, and narrator is first person Huck. Okay, while in Tom Sawyer it was third person omniscient. Okay, easy. I've given you the difference. Let's move on. Huck begins this novel like this quote. Listen to what Huck says. You don't know about me without you have read a book by the name of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. But that ain't no matter. That book was made by Mr. Mark Twain, and he told the truth mainly. There was things which he stretched, but mainly he told the truth. Here, Huck is talking about how Mr. Twain, has managed to maybe play with the details or the truth in Tom Sawyer. And that is something he's going to do here also, an artist freedom. Now, at the end of the Adventures of Tom Sawyer, you know it, Huck was adopted by Widow Douglas, who is a kind and a religious woman who lives with her sister, Miss Watson. So there's a new entry here, Miss Watson. Huck is not happy with his new civilized lifestyle. Look at the spelling of civilized. Here it is starting with S, otherwise it is C, we know it. But then throughout the novel, Huck has written the spelling of civilized with an S. Huck is not happy with his new civilized lifestyle because it requires regular bathing, manners, going to church, school. Okay, he thinks of it as a social hypocrisy. This is a theme in the novel. He says that society only talks about going to church, getting dressed properly, having mannerisms, but that is not true freedom. Huck wants to run away from all this. Yet, he agrees to stay with Widow Douglas on the insistence of Tom, who accepts him in his robbers' gang only if Huck stays respectable. I request you to go and check out my last novel before coming to this one, because only then you will enjoy this. Things go fine until one day Huck's drunken father, Pap, comes looking for his son at the widow's house. He hates it that Huck is getting educated rather than following their family line of ignorance. Can you imagine? Pap says this to Huck, his son. And looky here, you drop that school, you hear? I learn people to bring up a boy to put on airs over his own father and let on to be better than what he is. Did you understand? What is Huck's father saying? I am not educated. How can you be? I am ignorant. I am a drunkard. How can you be so good? No. That's not what it is. That's not how our life should be. Here, the theme of social mobility is discussed. Few people want to move ahead in society, but few want to remain where they are. So the theme of social mobility discussed here. Now, Judge Thatcher and widow are very scared. They don't want to give away Huck to this drunkard man, Pap. So they try to get the legal custody of Huck. But one day, something unfortunate happens. An outraged Pap kidnaps Huck and locks him up in a cabin along the Mississippi River. Pap treats his son disturbingly, disgustingly. He abuses him, beats him, keeps him locked. And to escape from this misery, Huck fakes his own death. Can you imagine? Huck fakes his own death by killing a pig and spreading its blood all over the cabin. And finally, Huck is free. He canoes his way on the Jackson's Island. In Tom Sawyer, we talk about adventure on the Jackson Island. Do you remember? So now Huck goes into hiding on this isolated Jackson's Island. Easy till here? After a few days on the island, Huck encounters Jim, a new entry, guys. Who is Jim? One of Miss Watson's slaves. Oh, slavery. So now we'll discuss about slavery. This is a theme in the novel and the most important theme, which is racism and slavery. Okay. Before the civil rights movement, slavery was allowed in America. You could keep slaves, okay? Because people treated them badly, inhumanely. They thought that these slaves, or this bad word nigger, which was used, okay? They said that these slaves, they don't have brain, they don't have heart. No, they don't have any reason. They should be treated like an animal. So this Jim is one of Miss Watson's slaves, okay? And he has run away. Jim has run away from Miss Watson because she wanted to sell him. Can you imagine? Slaves were sold for money. A human being getting sold for money. Jim is scared when he meets Huck because he thinks that Huck might turn him in and send him back to Miss Watson. But to this, Huck replies, quote, "People will call me a low-down abolitionist and despise me for keeping mum, but that don't make no difference. I ain't going to tell, and I ain't going back there anyways." So Huck is assuring, Jim, that I will not tell Miss Watson about you. Don't worry. Even if you are a slave, a runaway slave, I will not tell them. But this is a big confusion and guilt that Huck faces throughout the novel. Why? Because a true Christian should not lie. And he thinks that he will go to hell if he will help Jim. Still he does. Okay, we'll listen to it slowly. Now, on Jackson's Island, Huck and Jim become very good friends. They laze around like fishing, camping, cooking, etc. Once Mississippi River, on which, the island is located, floods. There is a flood on the river due to a storm. And Huck and Jim get hold of a long raft. Raft, this wooden, piece, which acts like a boat. So they basically get a boat, a long raft. And also they find a house which is floating, a floating house. They go inside this house to loot it. And what do they find? They find a dead body inside this house. Imagine a dead body. But Jim refuses Huck to see the dead man's face. So Huck does not know who this dead man is. Okay, let's move on. One night, Huck visits the town disguised as a girl, where a shrewd but gentle lady named Judith Loftus tells him that her husband is a slave hunter who is pursuing Jim. Scared, Huck returns back to the island, and Huck and Jim, they quit this island on their raft and begin the journey towards the free states. So America had free states up north where slavery was prohibited. Okay, so now, Huck has decided that Jim, let's go up north so that I can drop you there and you will be free. Okay, Jim is a superstitious man. He tells Huck that hairy men are rich. Can you imagine? If you have a hairy chest, hairy back, you will be rich. Being hairy himself, Jim comments, listen to this. "Yes, I am rich now. Come to look at it. I own myself, and I with $800. I wish I had the money. I would not want no more." Can you imagine? Look at the innocence of this slave. He says that I am worth $800. This is how much Miss Watson had thought that she will sell Jim for. So Jim says that I'm worth $800. If I get this much money, I will not need any more money in life. But the irony is, can he sell himself? The theme here is superstition. Let's move on. As Huck and Jim move closer towards Cairo, Ohio, and the free states up north, Jim becomes very excited. He shall have his freedom at last. But Huck lashes himself for helping a slave escape. He is sure that he will go to hell for this act, but he listens to his conscience, which says otherwise. Here, the theme of moral and intellectual growth of hero. The hero here is Huckleberry Finn is discussed. Did you understand? So basically, Huck is telling himself, how can I help a slave? I will go to hell. But then his conscience tells him, you have to help someone because people are not meant to be slaves. People are meant to be equal. Now here, an unfortunate accident happens. What happens? A steamboat slams into their raft, and Huck and Jim are separated. A steamboat slams, Huck and Jim are separated, the raft is broken. Now, what will happen? Huck enters the hospital. Basically, Huck, he comes to a village. Here he enters the hospitality of a family called as Granger Fords. This is the surname of the family, like my surname is Vadvani. So Huck enters the hospitality of Granger Fords, a family of southern aristocrats. For reasons unknown, Granger Fords are in a dispute with their neighboring clan called as the Shepherd's Sons. So here there is a feud shown between two neighboring families, Granger Fords and Shepherd's Sons. Now, the problem arises when the Granger Ford daughter elopes with the Shepherd's son's son. They are in love. They run away, two rival families, like how it happens in Bollywood families. And this leads to a big violence, a bloodshed violence. Huck escapes his life, and to his surprise, he reunites with Jim, who is present, who is not gone anywhere. And let me tell you, he has repaired their broken raft. So their raft is ready to travel again with them. Joyously united, the two restart their journey. This time, they save two men from a gang of bandits. These two men, who claim to be the king and the duke, join Huck and Jim on their raft against their wish. So understand this story. These two people, they are con men, but they are calling themselves to be aristocrats. An old man is saying, I am the king, I'm the long lost king. And the other man is saying, I'm the duke, we are aristocrats. That's not the reality. They are frauds. They con people for money, and they have joined Jim and Huck on their raft. Huck does not want them to be on their raft, but they have to adjust somehow. They have no choice. Now, how does the king and the duke, how do they con people? For example, there's an instance in the story. They claim to be twin brothers of a deceased wealthy man called Peter Wilkes to gain his inheritance, but it does not happen. Don't worry. Things go bad when this king and duke sell Jim. Can you imagine? They sell Jim, the slave, for money to a farmer's family called as Phelps family. That's the surname again, Phelps family. So as Huck discovers, this Phelps family basically consists of an old auntie called as Sally Phelps and an old uncle called as Silas Phelps. Now, Sally Phelps and Silas Phelps are aunt and uncle of Tom Sawyer. Tom Sawyer's entry will happen soon here. Kindly attention. Tom Sawyer is coming. So now, this Phelps family is related to Tom. To help Jim escape, Huck disguises as Tom in front of the Phelps family, who are actually awaiting the arrival of Tom. They've never met Tom, and they are waiting for Tom. So, Huck wants to help Jim. Jim has been given as a slave to this Phelps family. So Huck enters their house saying that, I am your nephew, I'm Tom. And Huck knows everything about Tom, right? Because they are friends. Tom does arrive. Tom listens to the entire story of Huck. He's very excited because it's an adventure. He becomes Sid. Can you imagine Sid, Tom's younger brother? So Huck becomes Tom. Tom becomes Sid. And this Tom is very excited to live another adventure. This adventure is to help a slave escape. And when Tom agrees to help Jim escape, Huck comments, listen to this guilt, okay? Guilt. I'm bound to say Tom Sawyer fell considerable in my estimation. Only I could not believe it. Tom Sawyer, a nigger stealer? He is helping Jim escape. When Tom agrees to help in the same expedition, Huck says, how can he agree? It is against. We will go to hell. Are you understanding here? Tom hatches a very wild and careless plan, which will get everyone killed, as Huck foresees. But they agree because Tom is insistent. He's like, no, don't worry. Jim will have his freedom. We have to run away like this. Do that. But during their escape, something bad happens, as Huck had foreseen. Jim is freed, but Tom is shot in the leg by a pursuer. Okay. People believed that slaves had no heart and brain, but Jim does not run away. Jim does not believe that his freedom is more than saving a person's life. Jim stops. He nurses to Tom while Huck runs to summon a doctor. Tom is shot in the leg. So now Tom recovers and Jim ends up back in chains in the Phelps house as a slave. And this brings us to the end of Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Listen to what happens in the end. First, The next morning, Tom confesses that Miss Watson is dead 2 months ago. Miss Watson, the owner of Jim. And when she was dying, she wrote the will in which she made a provision in her will to set Jim free. Jim is free. And can you imagine Tom knew all this? Tom knew this. He could have just come and simply told Huck that Jim is free because Miss Watson is no more. But this silly Tom, because he wanted to live an adventure, he dragged everyone into danger. Second, what happens at the end? Jim reveals that the body they found on the floating house had been Pap's. Can you imagine? Remember the dead body? Huck and Jim they find, and Huck was not allowed to see that dead body. It was his father's. Pap is dead. So now Jim is also free. Oh, sorry. Huck is also free. Jim is free. Huck is free. But third, Aunt Sally Phelps offers to adopt Huck. Why does everyone want to adopt Huck? Is he such a well-mannered boy? Why does everyone want to civilize Huck? But Huck has had enough of civilization with an S. He confirms he will no more be civilized. He confirms his plan to set out for the West, as he says. Listen to these lines. But I reckon I got to light out for the territory ahead of the rest, because Aunt Sally, she's going to adopt me and civilize me, and I can't stand it. I've been there before. Remember, with Widow Douglas. So here, this line is very important. I got to light out for the territory, which means I got to attain my freedom. Okay, this is also a theme, freedom. And we are done with Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Wasn't it awesome? These novels are classics, okay? You should know their stories. These novels laid the foundation of American literature, okay? This is Hina from Team Vallath. If you loved it, come on, subscribe to our channel if you still haven't. And I have a surprise for you. If you haven't checked out our YouTube shorts, you should, because very soon we are coming up with rhetorical devices. You will learn all about rhetorical devices coming July. It's going to be awesome. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.